Coupled with that program, we have our private taxiways, and that is to be scheduled to be completed by mid next week, which is our completion date within our contract. So we are well within time frames doing that, and we'll have it completed before snowfall. Drainage channel improvements, or our northwest drainage channel, that program is completed in its entirety. All crossings are functional. The box culverts are working as they should be, and we are very happy with the capacity that those have given us. East storm channel rehabilitation, this is the control structure as part of our east drainage channel, and that program is also completed. We faced some significant challenges with snow melt and early precipitation early in 2019, but our contractor and our engineering team worked together to come up with some solutions and successfully complete that program. So I don't know if any of you went out there. It wasn't a pretty sight, but we got through it, and it's working well. Street rehabilitation, that would be 40th Avenue between 12th Street and south of 41st Street. That program is completed, and we have had good success with that rehabilitation strategy, which is our foam dashboard, which we currently use on 12th Street. So that road is functioning, and we're quite happy with it. Sanitary main replacement program. This was on 45th Avenue, where we replaced and upsized 2 blocks of sanitary main to assist with surcharging or capacity issues in our 36th Street sanitary trunk system. So that program was completed within 4 or 5 weeks, so we're very happy on that one. Drainage channel improvements, East Lake J. So Engineering Services has prepared a bid document, has issued that to our pre-qualified contractors, and we're in the process of securing a contractor to complete that work. Given the nature of that work, it is within an active storm channel, and given the experiences that we had this year on both our northwest and our east drainage channel, we have decided to complete that in early 2020. So we are in frozen condition. Moving on, leachate management systems. That was our new leachate pond, or our equalization pond at the landfill next to cell 1.3. That was completed last week with our final inspections, also done last week. Minor deficiency items, and that one is fully operational, so we are finished with that one. Parkview Stormwater Management Pond, we had some issues with that one. Sorry, Council President.
I just wanted a quick clarification question. Just as far as the expenditures go versus the 2019 expense, and then the percentages, there's some where the bills just haven't come in yet, so it's not kind of lining up, or the ones that are 100% complete and they were finished a little bit earlier, that is going to be the total cost for the year. That's just what I'm trying to...
Excellent clarification. So we have two sides of this table. So we have the expenditures that we have to date, and these would line up with the financial software that we have. Whereas we have estimated construction complete. I know these programs have been completed. We're still working on final progress payments, holdback releases, deficiency releases, and other project management or project completion components. So we will see some invoices come in after this, but this gives you an idea of where we're sitting at completion-wise on the program.
Thank you.
Where was I? Parkview Stormwater Management Pond, as I said, we were having some issues with draining that pond, keeping it dry, as we do have to work within that normal water level to high water level, so the fluctuations in the pond. We got that sorted out, and we have since completed that program. We will have minor carryover work on that one to finalize it, but we are complete on there. Drainage improvements, so this would be the 75th Avenue drainage on the east side of 75th Avenue between 29th Street and south of 42nd Street. We have completed a detailed design, and we are in the process of preparing a bid document to secure a contractor, as that work will be completed at any time. Next, Neely Edmonds storm system improvements. We are just getting going on that one, but similar to all of our other drainage channel improvement works, this needs to be completed during frozen conditions, or else we're continually battling precipitation, snow melt and just flowing water. So that one will be completed in the upcoming months. 2019 Street Improvement Program, we are anticipating that one to be completed hopefully this week, and if not, it will be early next week with the trail side in next to 47th Avenue. But that program is in its final strokes. We have seen deficiencies being repaired, so we will complete that one at 100% this year.
James, if I could, just a question on that. 42nd Street west of 47th Avenue seems to have sustained a large amount of damage during that process if you're driving straight east of the youth, or straight west of the youth center.
Okay.
Sorry. I didn't know if that was included in this, but there are major craters and roadway deterioration, and I don't know if that was from parked equipment or what exactly it is there. If you take a look down to the west of on 42nd Street there's some, looks to me like it's been done because of the construction.
Okay, I will have a look. Thank you for your comment. I do know on 42nd Street we did have to realign some individual residence services, so there might have been some excavation completed there, and we just haven't gotten to the repairs yet. But I will have my team look into that, and if it was damage caused by our program, it will be rectified as well. So thank you for that. Further to that, 2019 Water and Sewer Replacement Program, we have completed that one in its entirety. We have completed our inspections of it. We have minor deficiency work, but it is completed and is on its warranty period. On that note, big congratulations to our engineering team and our consultant and our contractor for that one, as that is one of the first water and sewer programs to be completed before snow flies. Traffic signal installation commercial development, so this would be at 75th Avenue. The contractor is in the process of ordering material, ordering the light posts, the other hardware that is associated with traffic signals, and we'll be looking to start the installation in late October. That program will be completed in conjunction with our timing and coordination, or our Centrex automated advanced traffic management system to improve our timing and coordination. So those ones will go hand in hand as we do have the same contractor for those. Dangerous goods route and truck road establishment. So we've completed our first public engagement. Our second public engagement is scheduled for December 13th, I believe, after hopefully many of the Christmas concerts and plays have been completed. We had a lot of success with our first public engagement, reaching out to some larger stakeholders as well as just general public as we were combined with the farmers market at the Service Sports Center. Contractor is anticipating completion of that in its entirety in early 2020. Sidewalk condition survey and road condition survey, so a contract has completed all data collection and we are just waiting on the final report for that. Martin Brown School demolition. Project has been completed in its entirety. The area has been inspected and it is now on its warranty period. We were able to salvage one set of playgrounds, as well as we left all the trees intact on that site. 2020 Street Improvement Program, this would be design services. Our consultant is working on those programs, and we are anticipating completion of that program before we break for Christmas or into 2020. Same would fall for 2020 Water and Sewer Replacement Program. Our consultant has completed the data collection and 60% design drawings, so we are well on track to have that one completed in early December as well. That's our programs at a glance. As I said, we've had a very successful year in my mind, given the number of inclement weather days that we have seen this year. So hats off to everybody involved in those programs from my perspective. Thank you. I'll turn it over for questions.
Thank you, James. I'd love to council for questions or comments. James, I do want to again add to the congratulations. I think your team worked very hard. We had well over 50 plus rain days, I understand, from June 1st on until now, and we still experiencing some other challenges. So, I know, I'm sure that 47th Street was a challenge, but they got through it. And, from that perspective, certainly the contracts to see the street improvements just continue to happen throughout the city. I drove around all the a sudden they were done.
Yep.
And I think that was appreciated by a lot of residents, that it happened quick when it happened, and it worked with the weather, from that perspective. So I think it's, like I say, hats off to your team with engineering. You had a very full plate this year, and it's great to see, because I think the improvements that people saw are moving in the community. I think that's what's important from the perspective of both the taxpayer and council, is seeing that when we spend money, it gets to be used and enjoyed by the residents, because no one is having a smooth street in that curve yet, so that's the good news. Thank you, Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jim, just a question on the 29th to 44th Street on 75th Avenue, the drainage ditch. It's all fine. I just wondered why we were going further south. Like, that blocks, as we speak, is being the subdivision, area structure plan, and all this stuff's being done. So, am I missing something, or am I wrong here?
Nope, thank you for your question. And so to clarify that work, so our 75th Avenue drainage project is, as you said, from south of 41st Street to just the north side of 29th Street. We decided to put 29th Street as our southern boundary or southern limit on the program, simply for the fact that we still, or land division still has a parcel just west of Lake Shore, as well as the remaining quarter to the south of that. That still requires detailed design of the parcels themselves, amendments, I believe, to the area structure plans for those areas. So we decided to cap our extents at 29th Street so that we don't get too far ahead of ourselves with drainage to the south.
If I may, that's a question. The design for the, well, there's two streets that I've always wondered about. Well, we know about four, now 50th Avenue, but 59th, southbound from 23rd Street, and 75th. And I know it's expensive, but has administration been thinking about urban design roads, or are they going to stick with rural design with ditches?
So on both of those roads, 59th, south of College Drive or 23rd Street to 12th Street, as well as 75th Avenue between 44th Street and 12th Street, those are within our 10-year capital plan to complete the detailed designs, going from a rural cross-section to an urban cross-section, if they haven't been completed already. I do know there has been some design work being completed on the 59th Avenue portion. We just need to see where that design is sitting, what that is going to cost, and then we can start coming up with an implementation plan and strategy on how do we get this converted. As we do know, drainage, servicing, everything needs to be completed at the same time when we move on those programs.
I guess spending money twice sometimes, but no, I just trying to understand what you're doing.
So the work that we're completing as part of our 75th Avenue drainage project this year is on the east side of 75th Avenue, further east than the Husky Energy Incorporated pipelines that parallel 75th Avenue. So if we do any extension, urbanization to 75th Avenue, it will be forced to the west of its current location because we have that constraint of the APCO pipelines, or the Husky Energy pipelines there. So our work is between the Husky pipelines, the existing property line, so it will remain untouched.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question, I guess, on the sidewalk commission survey and road commission survey. So I'm excited to see that we're going to be exporting and reporting the state into an asset management plan. How often will this kind of survey need to be done? Because 3 years, 5 years, or what do you think?
Thank you for your question. So this program that we have right now, we have a 3-year standing offer agreement.
Okay.
So we are doing 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 of the city. So every 3 years, we will come back again and start the process over. So every 3 years, we will capture the entire city.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from James? Not seeing any. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
glad to see the report. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 4.2.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present 4.2 Fire Services Quarter 3, 2019 report, I'll ask Fire Chief Jordan to come forward.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me here today to speak. I'd like to provide a report for the committee on third quarter Lloydminster Fire Services report. This is to keep residents and council informed and updated on the activities of the Lloydminster Fire Services. The quarterly report is broken into 5 categories: operations, fire prevention, training, community relations, and project updates. These 5 key areas provide residents and council with a comprehensive overview of fire services activity. Some highlights to the Q3 report are: the fire services attended a total of 159 calls for service. The fire services attended a total of 27 motor vehicle collisions. 261 homes were inspected as part of the residential home inspection program. And the Lloydminster Fire Services, in conjunction with employee relations, have created a recruitment manual for firefighters. And within the new manual is a job-related physical capacity assessment. Turn it over for any questions.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Chief. You may have heard me say it before in the past. It's still quite concerning to me that 170 false alarms have been reported this year so far. What is the cost per alarm? It's not as cheap as you think. Something I think as council we really need to take a really serious look at. If we're doing X amount of calls and 170 of them are false alarms, we're burning rubber on the trucks, we're putting miles on them, or the expense that goes along with that is massive. The number to me is stunning, 170. So how are your crews handling? Because that's a different thing too, right? You get going, you go to these calls, and there isn't a call.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Actually, we're also in the process of reviewing how we categorize calls, because what we have is a huge number of calls that don't have a great description. We have 107 false alarms. Now, that is a mixture between your typical residential home alarm system that calls in to potentially burn cooking in apartment blocks. So some of these may be related more closely to a different type of service call, and we are currently reviewing our data system as well as how we present information to give a better and accurate picture, because 170 false alarms, and if we think of residential commercial alarm systems, that is an astronomical number where there is a huge increase. So we will be working on that to provide better information. And the team's doing good. And false alarms are just part of the business too. And they would be on par with what other fire services are seeing across the provinces.
So you're saying that the 170 is on par with similar sized cities?
Yeah, there's false alarms. Actually, in some places they're quite a bit higher, just in the way they handle alarm companies and the way they dispatch fire departments. Here we've tried to eliminate false alarms by having our dispatch center across the road actually call key holders before dispatching fire department, just to eliminate those redundant calls, because there is certain occupancies where you'll see a lot.
No, and I'm fully aware of that with what I do on the other side of this too. It's the question that I get from residents all the time is, why is our fire truck constantly going, right? And I just wanted to highlight the fact that there was 170 of these calls so far this year, because people ask about it all the time. So to me, the number is far too high. So, but that's where the truck's going when people are asking, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Councillor.
So just to clarify, thank you, Worship, the trucks left 170 times. Or I'm just trying to connect what Councillor Buckingham's saying with what I see on here, so.
Yeah, so our year-to-date from January 1st to September 30th is 170 false alarm responses that we did.
So trucks left 170 times false alarm. Now, I know we've discussed it before, and please excuse me for not remembering, but we were talking about creating a fine and some, where are we at with that?
That is currently within the fire services bylaw.
Okay.
It's not a fine, we actually call it fee for service. So when there is over 2 or over 1
Yep.
false alarm a year to a property, we do have the ability to start invoicing. And we use that fee for service as a real educational tool to a lot of our problem occupancies within the community. When that was changed over in 2015, we saw a great reduction in a lot of these generally commercial properties to actually start maintaining and installing their alarm fire safety systems better, so we aren't getting these type of false alarms.
So have we charged the fee for any of these 170?
I believe 1. And there isn't a lot of problem occupancies anymore where they are having to go off and off and off.
Okay.
It's generally throughout the community. We did a review, I believe after last time I was away for the second quarter report, we did a review that I think did make it up to council on the amount of occupancies that we're having these multiples.
Councillor,
Under the miscellaneous, can you give me an example? There's 27 year-to-date. Are those actual call-outs that you guys are responding to, or what would be something that would be under the miscellaneous?
Thank you, Councillor. We'll attend calls, say with our partners here, CMP, do something that just generally doesn't fit into any of those services that we see up there. Again, we are reviewing our data collection system, so we'll be trying to drop those miscellaneouses to try and get close to nil.
Right, okay, perfect, thank you.
Councillor Whitman.
Thanks, Your Worship. So I wanted to circle back to one, and I think that the other thing about these 170 calls, since we have the forum and people viewing this and listening, so on and so forth, the other thing I think that we find in those 170 false calls is incorrect contact information. So, like Chief said, the dispatchers will call and try and get a hold of somebody and say, no, it's just a cooking accident, no response required, right? More often than not, unfortunately, I don't know more often than not, but a lot of the time, people's contact information hasn't been updated on their alarm systems. So we've got phone numbers that aren't working, and when we can't reach the caller, our dispatchers will send our fire services out. So it is a nice reminder for people to make sure that the numbers that they have for contact and emergency are accurate on their alarm systems.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I look at these firearms, I saw the number 170, and that doesn't upset me because we have what we call building codes. And so many of these firearms in the past history in the city, and to my understanding, I know nothing about fires or fire alarms, but I've been involved with construction for a long time. And a lot of these alarms are installed in the wrong place. The sensors, cold weather, all kinds of things that set these alarms off. And I think that if we have 170 calls there, most of them are first call, or whatever you call them. One bell or
First alarm, yeah.
whatever you call them. And some of these sensors and these smoke detectors are maybe 15, 20 years old, are located in the wrong place. Maybe. I'm just thinking back. And maybe what we have to do, first of all, I'd hate to see the alarms not work or disconnected. I'd hate to see us not respond in case there is one fire, because it could be somebody's life. I think the preventative maintenance, and I don't know how you do this, other than having a fire alarm expert do a review of all the fire alarms in town and say, you've got to move the location, your sensors, if that's what you call them, because it's causing problems. If somebody pulls the lever, that's a different story. We know that. But I do know that there's sensors that have been moved in this city to a location that isn't so subjected to going off on its own. So I think we could, if we could look at something like that, I don't know what I'm saying here, but I do, that if in fact weather and other things are making, or too much heat, making things kickstart, maybe that's an area we could look at. Just a suggestion. So,
Thank you.
thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor, and the fire department has always maintained a priority of education and working within our community and for our customers. So what happens when we do respond to these type of alarm systems, we do look at the causes and try and work with them to give them recommendations. And whether it be installing a new compressor for a dry sprinkler system, our cold weather is quite hard on sprinkler systems, so a lot of your commercial property, they have sprinkler heads outside, so they have to run compressors constantly to maintain air pressure. So we'll go and work with those property representatives and try and give recommendations to improve, as well as, yes, there is alarm systems and they do have to be installed and maintained within conformance with the National Building Code, National Fire Code, and CAN-ULC regulations. But that doesn't always mean that they're installed in the best place. For instance, within a restaurant, putting heat or any type of gas detection close to a fryer, especially during startup, is not advisable. So we do go and we do look and we try and work with our
Yeah,
customers.
sure you do. Well, that's good. I think that work on the preventative side is really important.
Chief, there's complaints and service calls. I wondered if you could explain just a brief definition of both. I'm just curious what kind of complaints the fire department gets. I think I know, but I'd like to hear your answer.
So what we're putting within complaints is what we call burning complaints within the fire department. So that is people that have their backyard fire pit, burning wet wood and filling up neighborhoods with smoke. We fill that within that complaint. So anything that is a complaint made against what I would say is our fire services bylaw, fireworks as well, both low hazard and high hazard being set off within our community. We put that all within the complaints.
Service calls.
Service calls are a more general type of calling, call type, I would say. Service calls, anything that we go and we provide a service that doesn't fit the needs of anything else. It's kind of like miscellaneous, but miscellaneous is more outside of the scope of the fire department.
Okay. Such as EMS.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Certainly appreciate this very much, Chief, and I think this council does. And maybe if it's possible, we've got the year-to-date, just to give us a broader, even over 2 or 3 years, are we seeing added to that report, giving us an idea, are we seeing more calls, less calls, so we sort of see some trending, and you can share that with us as you see it from that perspective. If we hope that, as Councilor Baker said, prevention outweighs the fire, and fire prevention slows down the number of calls, but certainly be curious to see over a period of time as the traffic improves and see the numbers, statistics to share some information.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the plan was at the end of the fourth quarter to prevent a year-end report and actually go year over year to show a better picture of the fire department, but we can absolutely add that as well to our quarterly report.
Yeah, I'd be just curious quarterly. I think that, not remembering the last quarter, but quarter to quarter, because we do know that, as you said, more fires, outdoor fires in the summer, I believe, than you would in the winter, of course. So from that perspective, I'm reflecting that just to see if we're seeing any trends.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Moving on to 4.3, City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present 4.3 annual performance plan update, I'll ask Inspector Lee Bruckner to come forward.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Council.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me here today and allowing me to speak. Appreciate that. So we'll just jump right into the quarter 3 update to City Council from the Leominster RCP detachment. I'll give a bit of a brief overview on our human resources, how we're looking so far. And I'll give an update as to current crime trends and then get into our detachment priorities and what we're seeing for achieving our objectives for this year. So we'll get into the update. We have 49 regular member positions positions. I can say that I'm pleased to say that all of our crime reduction positions, we have 2 of them, they've both been filled, and both members are here and working. The school resource officer for the public school division side has also been filled. Constable Kyla Sinnell is currently in that position. She's been there since the beginning of the school year and is doing well in that role. I can also say that, and I'll speak to this a little bit later as well, that we've reallocated some general investigation resources as well into and from them from our general investigation support team into they're now together as a second general investigation section team with the mandate of property crime and supporting and guiding, providing investigative support to general duty members as well. I can say that 2 of our GIS positions are currently vacant and are being filled. One member is coming from Southern Alberta and will be here as soon as the transfer process is underway and we can sell our residence and that. So hopefully in the next few months. And we're looking at earmarking one of the positions as a developmental opportunity to enhance the overall investigative capacity of Lloydminster Detachment. With respect to our statistics, these numbers are all year-to-date as at September 30, 2019, and the previous years are also year-to-date, so from January 1 to September 30th. Looking at persons crime first, we're seeing a bit of an increase in overall persons crime, sitting at 673 compared to 597 this time last year. That is a trend that we will be keeping an eye on and determining if there's any underlying factors that we need to be aware of and take action for. We've seen a bit of an increase in our sexual assault numbers. We have seen a reduction in our common assault statistics as well, and a bit of a slight increase in our other threats numbers too. Moving on to property crimes, I'm pleased to say that overall we are seeing a downward trend. For year-to-date numbers, where our property crime has decreased by about 3% compared to the same time period in 2018. Digging deeper into that, our break and enters, they have increased about 31%, and so that's something that we need to, we're aware of and looking to determine what the underlying factors are there. Our thefts of motor vehicle, I'm pleased to say, are down about 5% for this time comparatively. Our thefts over $5,000 have decreased approximately 24%, and our thefts under $5,000 have decreased by about 13%, and our mischief to property, sort of vandalism, that type of thing, has decreased by about 5% as well. So overall, our overall property crime numbers are looking down. We're moving forward on some crime reduction initiatives that I think will help solidify some of these reductions in property crime, and I'm cautiously optimistic that this trend is going to continue into the new calendar year as well. With respect to our motor vehicle collisions, we have seen a bit of a slight increase with respect to motor vehicle collisions at 618 compared to 603 this time last year. Our reportable property crime, reportable motor vehicle collisions are down, and our injury motor vehicle collisions are slightly up compared to last year. And then getting into our other categories, so that's kind of the catch-all caveat for things that aren't property crime, motor vehicle crime, or persons crime. We've had about, even on persons reported missing, the number of reported disposal assaults have been increasing. We are seeing a bit of a higher trend this time, this year compared to last year, and a bit of an increase overall from dating back to 2015. And our mental health act occurrences are up right now as well. With respect to traffic, our traffic offenses, occupant restraints, seatbelts are down right now at 137. Our speeding infractions are up slightly from last year at 112. Intersection-related offenses are 117, so they're up compared to last year at 72 occurrences there. And other non-moving, so that's any infraction of the vehicle is not in motion. We are sitting at 391 compared to 741 this time last year.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask you this time, distracted driving, is that where other non-moving would fall into, or where would distracted driving?
Distracted driving would be, if it's not earmarked on its own, that would be other moving, something where the vehicle is in motion.
Okay.
And the worship as well.
Certainly.
Thanks, Inspector. Another question is, how do our bylaw officers' numbers impact these numbers overall? Because I would say in the last couple of years, we've had an increase in our bylaw patrol, our bylaw enforcement. So this should probably bring your numbers down, because if I read this right, these are your numbers, these are your members' numbers only.
Correct, yes, these are Lloydminster RCMP numbers, so that's not including the Vermilion Traffic Services that comes in from time to time. It's not including our community police officers, SAS, Highway Patrol. These are just the RCMP numbers for Lloydminster Detachment.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because you see everybody out there, but those numbers are not the inspectors, these are just the actual RCMP ones.
That's correct.
Thanks so much for sharing this information. One of the interesting things where you heard, I think it's Chief McPhee for City of Edmonton, and what was fascinating is that he highlighted, as you alluded to a little bit here, the Mental Health Act and the challenges around it, and that many of the scenarios you're actually called up to are much more complex than just an actual crime being committed. It's more of a disturbance, and it could be related to relationships and all the others. One of the pieces that he highlighted was that the percentage of actual convictions of all these calls that come out is so trivial compared to the number of calls they respond to. And I'm wondering if you could just talk a bit about that. The other part you mentioned that Dale said is talking about some action plans in the community. I'm not sure, I'd be interested in what parts that are going to be addressed relative to that, but particularly on the other pieces where we look at, what we got, 420, 700, almost 800 incidents in total on that page. And yet, many of those services are services that really are not directly going to lead to a charge or a conviction for that matter. And there's still these number of calls that you called out to. What other strategies are you looking at, I guess, to be able to address that part of it?
Thank you for your question. What I can say is that dealing with mental health occurrences from a policing standpoint, you're correct that it is very complex, and that's where we lean heavily on our partners in especially addictions and mental health services, and our partners with the hospital in the emergency departments and things like that. Where typically for a mental health complaint, as long as they are not committing any other crime as a result of the occurrence, typically is a person experiencing trauma. And the Mental Health Act in both Saskatchewan and Alberta give the police powers to apprehend and take a person into custody for the purposes of conveying them for an evaluation by a medical professional. And so typically that's what's occurring there. Quite often, no crime, because being in mental health distress is not a crime. The police would simply be using our powers, legislative powers, to be able to provide the assistance that we can to those folks. And that's where our partners come in to address some of the underlying health factors related to that.
Yeah, the only challenge is that, and we see it from other organizations that I work with, is that you can't take an individual who is highly suicidal, behavior is highly elevated. By the time you get to the hospital, when they actually do triage, the individual's calmed down, fine, is released, and then 48 hours later, you're back in again doing the same thing over and over again. And so I guess the challenge around this is there another strategy? Is there another way? Because what's happening now is that there's repeat customers that are coming in. And I think it's important to understand that people who have mental health challenges are not well. And there needs to be another solution to that, which really shouldn't reside at your doorstep, and yet you're the first people we called it off to deal with those issues. So I'm not sure what other people are doing in other parts of the province or the country for that matter, but it's taking up a bit of your time.
Absolutely it is, and that's the key piece is there are some folks that don't have the family supports or anything else that be able to provide that support once they are released from treatment or whatever medical treatments they've received, and that's really is the challenging piece to that is working with our partners and trying to find that balance between the police coming in contact with them and giving these people the help that's going to, I guess, prevent or stop the repetition of the occurrences.
And the piece I often wonder about, and we're training people to do cannabis detection, we're training people to do the sobriety tests and all those others. Has there been any consideration by the RCMP at all that beyond your level, provincially or nationally, that perhaps they need mental health people working as RCMP officers? Because that gap in time, by the time you get someone to a place where they can be triaged, behavior de-escalates, and we know what that region's like. So
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I know in RCMP, with the RCMP in BC, there have been some success stories in large municipalities where there are mental health workers working with dedicated RCMP members that have some enhanced training in mental health response. But typically, whether it's a psych nurse or other mental health worker working with the RCMP to assist, especially with the higher I guess the repeat clients
And higher
sort of
needs
working together to deal with those occurrences and give them the supports that they need. So I know in other places there are some examples of that. It's not a common practice overall, but there are some pockets where that's happening.
I'm just thinking, in terms of spousal abuse and sexual assault center, those pieces, we have people that are built in as part of the support network, and maybe that's a model that we build upon. I'm not suggesting we have the money or funds to run out and do it. But on the other hand, I'm just thinking the amount of time your members and your staff are called out to do this, when there are other pieces that really are not less mental health related and more criminal in content and intent, if you like. The only follow-up, if I could just ask, is conviction rates. How many of these visits and cases that you have in front of you actually lead to someone being in court and someone being convicted of a crime?
When we're looking at disposal abuse numbers specifically, I don't have any percentages necessarily, but a lot of that hinges on the support that the victims and witnesses have to actually be able to go to court and testify, right, if it's going to trial. Sometimes that can be the challenging point is by the time, months, sometimes a year or two has gone by, having people go willing to go and follow through the process can be a challenge.
Because I mean, what Chief McPhee said is that, you have all these incidents that you report and you're challenged, you're forced to go and take care of. In the end, the percentage, I don't remember the conviction rate, but it was incredibly low. And I'm just thinking that the reality is, as pointed out, and I think you would, many of us here, and the staff section also would know, there are criminals that belong in jail. That's the bottom line, that's what we have to. But there are a whole bunch of other people that, need something else in between.
Absolutely, and it's important to know that, it's the police's job to investigate the crimes and put together the best package that we can going forward, and then from there, that's where we hand it over to our partners, like in the crime prosecutor's office.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to add on to that, because this is kind of where my thoughts were on this subject as well, was the same presentation that Councillor Dijon had sat through. So I tried looking through my notes and I couldn't find anything of good quality from any UMA. So I looked up a news article just with Chief Dale McPhee, and it says that he's got one of his deputy chiefs assigned to a specific unit called the Community Safety and Wellbeing Unit. And this is what I wrote down from it, is that their job is to build partnerships with community organizations to align resources in the same direction to help people struggling with social issues out and keep them out of the courts and off the streets rather than committing crime. So, from my perspective, we're paying a premium for crime reduction units and we're paying a premium for SROs. What I'd be interested in knowing is whether or not there's any opportunity for the city to be in partnership to get those resources aligned to help we're not talking about the victim, we're talking about the perpetrator side, to get that side, to get them the resources they need so that you're not getting this recurring kind of scenario. Because, if there's one thing we've heard is that the majority of the crime that occurs within the city, whether that's property or, personal, it's the same handful of people doing it over and over again. And the reality is that there's some social issues, some mental health issues, some addictions issues that are leading people down this path over and over again. So if we can do anything from a dollars and cents point of view, as well as, improving quality of life in the city, would be to allocate some resources in that area. And in my view, I think that would be a long-term benefit to the city.
And I appreciate that point, Councillor, and I'll touch on it a little bit later, actually, in the crime reduction part of my presentation. But essentially, what I would like to see for our crime reduction unit is, when we look at crime reduction as a theory, it's not simply an enforcement mechanism. There's a partnership aspect as well, because we look at ways that we can reduce crime that's dealing with those habitual priority offenders. And typically, the crimes that are committed are the representation of the community of much deeper issues underneath, right? And so what's effective is having police work with our partner organizations to address some of those issues holistically. And what I'd like to see moving forward with our crime reduction, we have it up and running, and it is working, is to take that one step further and go into the partnership aspect to address to help address some of those underlying issues as well. And I think that'll, we'll see more success as well with our crime reduction strategy that way too.
Thank you.
If I can, there's traffic. In 2018, the other non-moving, we were quite high at 741, and we've kind of come back to half of that. Is there some explanation as to why there's less tickets being written in that area, or is it just not catching people in that part of it?
Yeah, I don't have a significant explanation for that. What I can say is that in discussions with Staff Sergeant Nelson, we're moving forward with the plan to enhance our traffic enforcement in many areas. This will likely feed into some increases there. So we do have some plans that we're hopefully move forward on sooner than later.
Great, thank you. Councilor Buckman.
Thank you, Worship. The RCMP is a changing dynamic. Of course, we always have members coming and going. We've had leaders come and go in the last number of years. We keep circling back to a lot of these priorities. My question is, I've never heard anybody tell me what our long-range plan is for as staff positions turn over and the continuance of the programs that we get started. We seem to have to have been recreating the wheel a little bit here and there. Is there some specific time spent on future development and how we're going to, as you leave and as this next person leaves, how we're going to continue to roll forward on these priorities?
From my perspective, what I would like to see is that continued handover, right? So I don't want to see what has been built and what's being built as far as the direction of the detachment's going just end when somebody leaves. So I think it's a valid point, and we need to put some more energy into looking at how we can best hand those plans over moving forward so that we don't lose the traction that we've perhaps seen in other years.
Yeah, I think we've lost a little bit there, and that's just something I was thinking about to bring up today, so thank you.
Please carry on.
Thank you. I'll just provide you an update. This update is to the end of September 2019 as well with respect to our detachment performance plan. We work on a fiscal year, April 1 to March 31, so it's going to be Q2 in this plan, quarter 2 in this plan. So one of our priorities is community engagement, the number of structured or unstructured community engagements. Our goal is to have 2 of them. We had one back in May with our coffee with the cop. I believe I spoke about that last time I was here, where we got out with the community and had one of the local businesses and just chatting with folks to see where they felt that the police were doing well, where there was perhaps room for improvement and what the crime trends they were seeing in their areas overall, which was very positive. I can also say that I am planning for a town hall meeting in January of 2020 as well. So I will keep council and the city informed as plans finalize and take shape for that. Our details and logistics are still being set up. I think that will give us a good opportunity to hear from folks as well, and here going into our other measure, the identification of top stakeholder priorities. I think that will be a good opportunity for that. Enhancing road safety, specifically in the area of impaired driving. We now have cannabis legalization, and we have other authorities under the criminal code with respect to mandatory alcohol screening and those types of tools. And so looking at our impaired driving charges, both alcohol and drug, we are in line to achieve our goal overall with respect to impaired driving enforcement. I can also say that in our second quarter, Lloyd Minster Center for Traffic Services joined with several other partners, such as the Community Peace Officers and Sask Highway Patrol, on some speed enforcement initiatives as well, with some good success there. And this next quarter is also looking promising with further operations planned with our enforcement partners in that area as well. With respect to our crime reduction strategy, specifically property crime, these numbers reflect fiscal years, so they won't necessarily match up with the year-over-year numbers that are in your packages. We are on track to meet our goal of seeing a crime reduction overall in property crime. Some of the initiatives that we've done to achieve those goals is we've created, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, a second GIS team specifically for the investigation of property crimes. And I'm hoping that will help alleviate some of the issues with respect to property crime as well. Focus on priority offenders is also in the process, and so I can say that the Lloydminster RCMP has reactivated the prolific offender program as well, and we're currently actively monitoring for habitual offenders, as was mentioned earlier. Those are the offenders that are causing the disproportionate amount of crime in their activities, so we're actively monitoring for right now. We've seen some success with this endeavor so far. It is a work in progress, but I'm optimistic that that'll continue. And we're also strengthening our ability to be intelligence-led, so knowing where to deploy resources, knowing where our hotspots are, who our offenders are, and so our crime reduction unit is leading a detachment-level effort to ensure that there's effective information sharing between general duty members and the more and crime reduction unit GIS. And so the idea is to build in crime reduction to all facets of our operations, so that we're really going forward on this objective and making it meaningful as well. I'm open for any further questions.
Thank you, Inspector. Councilor Archer.
And I think I need to ask before, if I did this, tell me and I'll ignore the question. Citizens on Patrol.
Yes.
Where are we at? Is that something, because we had it several years back and I'm not sure what.
What I can say is I was actually at the Citizens on Patrol annual general meeting last week. There is an active core. I believe there is 29 active volunteers, if I remember correctly. So we do have a big core of Citizens on Patrol. We also have a liaison officer, Corporal Sikorsky, liaising with that organization to make sure that there is a solid relationship between the RCMP and COP. And I can say that Corporal Sikorsky's efforts in that area have been significant in enhancing that relationship over the past year.
Have we found our missing radar person?
Unfortunately, that crime is still
Under investigation. Darn. I noticed there's a replacement put there.
Yeah.
Not halfway to say that.
Councilor Archer.
Further to that, thanks, Your Worship, maybe you could talk about the fact that Corporal Sikorsky was just awarded for his efforts in that regard as well.
Absolutely. So I'm pleased to say, and thank you for the reminder, Councilor Buckingham. Corporal Sikorsky actually won the liaison officer in the Alberta Citizens on Patrol Association. So that's a notable achievement. I think there was a number of other contenders in being looked at for that award. So to have him win and be named the liaison officer of the year is significant. And that just goes to the work that he's done, volunteering with the organization at some of their events, as well as his work to enhance the relationship between the RCMP and the COP.
Inspector, the reduction in theft of motor vehicles by 5%, I appreciate that very much, and the residents do as well. Are we still seeing problems with vehicles being unlocked and keys left in vehicles? Is that still the number one challenge we see?
Yeah, there are definitely pockets of that now as we get into the colder months as well. It'll be timely for some information in that. That is, I would say, one of the leading causes of theft of motor vehicles is, vehicles being left with keys inside the car. It's not the only factor, but it is a significant factor.
Operator, beware. Any other questions for the inspector? As always, Inspector, we thank you for the update and thank you for your leadership and the service that your members provide to our community. Certainly, that we take for granted what the RCMP do. I think most of us don't even have a snippet of the challenges you face, but we certainly appreciate the work you do on a daily basis.
Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, governance and priorities matters. City Manager regarding 5.1.
Thank you, Worship. To present 5.1, Larson Grove Phase 3, Stage 1, Land Use Bylaw 5, 2016 amendment. I'll ask Anthony Monroe to come forward.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to present some information pertaining to a land use bylaw amendment received by the department. The purpose of the application is to amend a section of the Larsing Road subdivision on Phase 3, Stage 1C, from R1 single detached residential to R3 row house residential for the purpose of accommodating 16 row house units. The administration initiated a 21-day referral period once we received the application to solicit comment from external agencies, internal departments, and adjacent landowners. That referral period ended October 11th. Small statement report says October 4th. Since that time, we've received 5 concerns from adjacent landowners, which the department is working to resolve with the applicant and the concerned residents. As you can see, a conceptual drawing is included in the report for your information, and the date for first reading will be next Monday. Is there any questions relating to the report?
So if I read this right, it was zoned as R1 single dwelling and then
Correct.
there's an R3, which is the row housing. The conceptual drawing, and I guess that's always a concern, I'm sure, when they didn't express, is that a firm conception or is that simply conceptual and there we could see a different type of a townhouse built in its place?
I do believe it's pretty firm.
And I believe we do have some of these that exist in the community already.
Yes.
Councilor Buckley.
Thank you, Worship. And that drawing would be directly behind the townhouses that are there now. Probably if you're looking at it from this corner, it would be that's going east, right? If you're standing on the bottom left corner here.
The area shown as grass on here is where the existing townhouses would be located.
Yeah.
So we would be facing northwest, I suppose. Yes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just curious on the other lots that are R1, kind of on the outside. Are a lot of those developed already, or are they still available for sale, or? Like even from the time that the photo that's on page 41 was taken, are any of those sold or developed or anything like that?
The lots along 42nd Avenue are sold and developed. The remainder of those parcels are not.
Okay, so everything on the west side and the north side is still not, but everything on the east side of the development has already been sold.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just looking at this map, it's just probably a misprint. Around 37th Street, if you over to 41st Avenue, I guess, half of it's pinked out, that box square road. In other words, on the east and the south, or the north, it's, north and the west, it's pinked out. Is there a reason for that? Is that telling me something? When you look at this drawing right here, this is pink to there and this is white. Is there some reason that?
So I think what Councilor Baker is referring to is that being completed?
This,
Right.
Yeah.
No, so what's going on in this drawing is that it is a little bit hard to understand. That roadway isn't yet subdivided. So it's, all these lands are currently still a parcel. It's parcel E, plan 101-564-3877. So the area of the roadway that is shown in pink isn't actually a roadway at this time. Subdivision application has also been received. It goes along with this application that we're processing separately.
That's right down.
So that's being worked on.
it's zoned R1.
Well, it is zoned R1 and the development is before planning and development right now, Counselor, for that roadway.
It's not already approved.
Not approved yet for
Sorry, can I just interject? The reason why the road there is depicting pink, it's just how our GIS system works. When a plan is brought forward, it turns pink, zoning the outside R1 and the inside R1 as it currently stands today. And once the subdivision plan is registered, the road is abstracted almost. It's just a GIS system is how it's portraying here. So it was probably 3 years ago that a Larson Grove 31C was approved. Because of development need, the developer has never registered. However, a unique opportunity has come up and therefore this proposal to amend the initial approval is brought forward.
I thought that was already zoned.
It is.
It is, Counselor, but it hasn't been developed by the...
It hasn't been
No, I
developed.
don't care about the development. It's a zoning, once the zoning's in place, it's in place.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has
But that's
been-
R1
Correct.
as shown.
It is
I just
R1.
wondered why the road was pink.
Because the subdivision plan has never been registered at
Yeah,
that
it just doesn't add up to me, I didn't know. But
Yeah.
saying, what are they doing here? And the jog in the road, is that the same issue?
Yes, just based
Okay.
on how property lines work.
That's
in
my question
Saskatchewan.
one.
Technically, the developer can have up to 2 years to register an approved subdivision plan at land titles.
Well, so that was the one question. The other question, on your actual site plan, can you go back to your site plan? Where the buildings are?
Third box. There you go.
Yeah. Now, the garages, you got 4 units in each one of those buildings. Is there 2 garages on the wings? One for each suite in the, in other words, I don't understand where they park the 2 inner suites, if that's what it is, because I don't know where, like, there's 2 doors right there. Is that 2 doors?
Yeah, I believe there's 2 doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Each,
And they serve all 4 units? One
Each-
garage each?
no, each unit will have one garage. Each unit will also be built identical internally.
Okay, so the parking for the, I call them the inner units, for lack of a better word, they're one of those 2 doors,
Yes.
okay?
Each unit will have a garage
What-
pad and a driveway pad.
What is that stuff at the back between the 2 buildings? Like, there's all kinds of stuff in my plan that I,
It's just
looks
going
like
to
a couple of
be,
gazebos and,
it's going to be shared green space, the entirety of this project. That Musgrave is working on will be the construction and the landscaping of this project. That's just depicting to us that there will be landscaping of a shared space between all 4 buildings.
and these are gonna look similar to the housing in the area.
Yeah, they will be done, a very similar project that you could relate this to in Wallacefield. I can't think of the street off the top of my head. About 2 years ago, it was kind of targeted to adult living, but they did bring forward 2 plexes similar to this.
Just as long as the people that are there now are protected somewhat from the people in their subdivision, really. It was similar to one that happened a couple of years ago. And it was more difficult, that was a full.
Yes, yeah. These also being single-story developments, considering you have R3 to this development, R1 across the street being single-story nature, they can, if anything, add to the transition of land use as well.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? So if this administration intends to bring this forward, first reading next week and then start the process to lead to a potential public hearing, I would imagine.
That's correct.
And you did mention there was 5 concerns, so the planning will be addressing those concerns directly with this, is that required?
Yeah, we'll be doing our best to do so.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Anthony.
Thank you.
Moving on to 5.2, City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship, to present land use bylaw 5, 2016 amendment cannabis edibles. I'll ask Natasha to come back forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm here to update the committee with information pertaining to the new legislation regarding the sale of cannabis-infused products. In October 2018, retail sales of cannabis was legalized. However, the legislation made it clear that the sale of cannabis-infused products, which includes edible cannabis, cannabis extracts, and cannabis topical products, would remain illegal. This legislation was further clarified in our previously approved amendments to our land use bylaw. In June of this year, the Government of Canada announced amendments to cannabis regulations in the Cannabis Act governing the sale of these additional products. On October 17, 2009, the amendments to the Cannabis Act were approved. Even though legalization has occurred pertaining to cannabis-infused products, it is not anticipated to see these products in our local stores until December 2019. Following GPC, planning and development will begin the process to amend the land use bylaw, including the definition of cannabis retail sales as cannabis-infused products has been legalized. No changes in permitted or discretionary use classification is proposed to be changed at this time.
Thank you, Natasha. Questions, comments? Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Worship. I don't know much about this stuff, it was born too soon. But in the local newspaper on Thursday, there was an article I left with you, only because I got it. And it says the Minister of Health, Mr. Tyler Chandra, has asked an MLA to do a review and the impact of vape and other things that we're putting on the market to our youth. And it goes on to say, on the last block, it said, Alberta Chief Medical Officer of Health added vaping related to acute severe lung illness to the official list of, whatever we've got, conditions. I guess there's a lot of concern about the use of these drugs from the medical world, and we hear about it on the radio and in the news. I was just really wondering if we want to get into this until this investigation is complete. The minister has asked for a report in early 2000. And do we want to deal with it now as they appoint Mr. Jeremy Nixon as the lead to look into this problem, or do we want to deal with it regardless of what the government is saying?
I'll take a kick at this and then I'll go to planning if I may, Councilor. I believe we've got two separate issues. That the vaping exists today. The province is exploring it. What we're looking at today is dealing with the discussion of
The gummy bears.
You're absolutely right. Gummy bears, the extracts, the tropical creams and things like that. And what's happened is, again, our federal government influenced, changed the law, resulting in provincial regulations, resulting in us trying to make sure that we are compatible, I guess. And I believe that currently, to Natasha and planning and city administration, if we don't do something with this, it will be illegal in our city, even though it is legal in Canada and legal in the province. Am I on the right track?
Actually, anticipating this line of discussion, we did speak with our legal counsel, or legal advisors on this. The city does not have the authority to ban the sale of edible products. Where a substance is federally regulated under federal criminal law, it is likely to have a complete, it is very likely that a complete prohibition at the municipal level will be characterized as an infringement on the federal criminal law power and therefore beyond the city's jurisdiction. However, that doesn't mean the city doesn't have some tools in its tool belt. It does have the authority to regulate the substance. It can legislate on matters including public consumption, business licensing, and land use. If council believes that there are unique land use considerations arising from the sale of edibles which do not arise from the sale of dried cannabis. So the city does have some authorities, but the city doesn't have the right to ban edibles. They would still be legal for sale elsewhere. It would still be available to come into the community, and it would still be a legal product in Canada.
So somebody could bring it in and sell it?
Well, that's where...
Wouldn't it be illegal?
It could be illegal.
If you ban, no, I'm just asking a question. If you ban the sale of this stuff in the city, if somebody comes into the city and sells it, they would be illegal, right?
What our
They'd have to have a business license and...
Absolutely, they'd have to comply with the bylaws, but what our legal is telling us that it's highly unlikely that the city would survive any challenge if it banned the product.
Your worship, my biggest concern is, well, I don't like all this stuff, but that's another story. Should we deal with this when it's under investigation, or should we hold off until the report comes back? Or do we go ahead and if it's passed, amend our bylaw, and then it comes back, and we get a negative report saying we shouldn't do this, and then we have to change it? I just a local article, no one asked.
And I appreciate that, Counselor, and I think the challenge that why I believe we do need to change this is this federal law, first of all. And we know that in Quebec, they challenged the right, that was federal law to say you can grow, I believe, up to 4 plants personally. The provincial government went against the federal law, and the provincial government, I believe, lost. That was a court case that just came to court not that long ago. So one of the challenges we've got is working within federal law first, the provincial law. And I think that this will change many number of things. The article you referred to today, I think there's potential changes coming, but we will have to address those accordingly because that's going to impact a lot of other bylaws in our city, just not the land use, I believe. Whereas today, I think what administration is looking for is that we have the opportunity to deal with the laws that we have to deal with today. Because that's simply all we can deal with, rather than anticipate the law. So to try and bring ourselves current today, and I appreciate exactly what you said, because the councils in the past have been challenged by that, changing the bylaw today, and then a month or 2 months have to change it again. That may be the case if another law comes along, but I think what we need to try and look for is to be compliant with the law today. And I think that's what administration is leading to, is all we can deal with is currently what's in law, because even though this report will be back in early 2020 from the province, it will take them some time to enact legislation and draft that. It's possible that it could be enacted in the spring sitting of the legislature, but chances are I think they might end up being the fall sitting. There's going to be a great deal of input from other organizations, I'm sure. We know that our students in the community, through the Youth Council and other organizations, have taken a very active role in lobbying for this kind of information from the newspaper. But I don't think we can wait on the law, because I don't want to see us challenged down the road, because it's illegal, as you said, until there is some laws in place at the municipal level, just to ensure there's clarity. We have, if I can use the word, some control, and depending on what comes through from administration to regulate this, so that these are not in every convenience store in every corner of the city. And that's what I do not want to see, those gummy bears, as you referred to, or cannabis gummies. So I think this is why it's important that we put some regulation in place. We may be back adjusting it in 6 months, 1 year. I can't see it happening in 2 months, but I think it'll be at least 6 months to a year before the next round, because that's going to be a provincial-driven matter. It will be a health matter, I suspect, because I think that's what they're looking to. But I think that for now, this is to deal with the law of the land today. You know, that can change. And, you know, it's a federal election today, so there's all sorts of things that could change or may not change. But based on the information we have today, I think we need to work towards being compliant to the federal law and still maintain what this community expects for community safeguards and the checks put in place. And I think that's what administration's proposing bringing forward.
Well, Your Worship, I may be one citizen that don't agree with every federal law. We just today had a report from the RCAB. We just read a report in your armchair over the last week about the community units, police officers, to look after our schools so that our kids don't get into trouble and do all these things. And at the next breath, the federal government saying, we're going to put more stuff on the shelf. Like, help me out, people. This doesn't make any sense. So I just wanted to clarify something. Gummy bears came from our city manager, not for me. So, just so you know, he gets credit for gummy bears.
He gets the
I think we're talking about two separate items. The vaping is not just affiliated only with use of cannabis, but it's also used a lot by people who are trying to quit smoking tobacco. So vaping is, if you look at where it's being governed and where it's initially started, this has been used by people to try to quit smoking and as an alternative, because then it's easier to pack around, you can put it in their pocket, and part of the challenge is you can get a vape pen that's as big as a straw, and you can have as much what nicotine amounts that you want. You can buy whatever oil to whatever concentration you want and put it in there, and away you go. That part of it, I think, needs to be made sure it's separate from the cannabis issue. The cannabis issue is separate from that. Are people vaping using cannabis? My understanding is what you're hearing is yes. And some of the individuals that are dying in the US are vaping actually cannabis extract, oil, or whatever it is that they use in the pens or the vaping devices. But this is vaping, which is separate and different, and is being, and really is more of a medical issue in terms of restrictions that are on it. Many of the products that were out there available for vaping pens were governed by the Food and Drug Administration and were not managed, they weren't supervised, and now the deaths, both in the US and Canada, the federal government is now being involved in looking into it and saying, whoa, wait a minute, this is unregulated, it's a bit of a rodeo, we need to put some rules around it and get ourselves sorted out. And what they did not anticipate, I think, is the impact it has potentially in the lungs of anybody who smokes and vapes. That is separate from the edibles. They're not putting gummy bears in the vape pens, last I heard. So all the changes we're talking about here is simply to be in compliance with the federal law. I appreciate the vaping issue is a critical one, but I don't see where it resides in this particular bylaw.
Councilor Baker.
Well, Your Worship, I guess the administrative report we received, the heading says, subject matter, land use bylaw, text amendment to include cannabis-infused products. That's what it says on the report. I don't know what a cannabis-infused product is. I honestly don't. To me, it's all one big kettle of fish. But I guess when I read that, and then I read this, I'm saying, what's going on here? This doesn't make any logical sense. Hopefully I'm still an average human being that can half understand this stuff. But it'll be this, then it'll be this, then it'll add this. You know, this country's going okay, that's enough.
I just add one more piece of it, because I think when I spoke with the lady who's working Shoppers Drug Mart at the seniors conference in Red Deer, her and a couple other people spoke about cannabis use, and they're saying their challenge is that the cannabis industry tends to be affiliated more with the tobacco industry because they smoke it. And what you'll see is the cannabis industry, according to the lady from Shoppers, is saying they're moving away completely from the whole notion of smoking the product. So if you go to California, you'll find that you could have a rum and coke infused with whatever amount of THC or product that gives the hallucinogenic qualities. You'll find every drink, every candy, every cookie, every product, and they're finding ways to infuse it because they don't want to be aligned with the tobacco industry. Because there's a lot of negative repercussions for the tobacco industry that's in lawsuits, being sued for cancer and all those other pieces. They want to be separate and away from it. And what you're going to see is, in spite of all the regulations and policies really being generated around not smoking, you won't smoke in the park, you're going to see that part of the industry disappear.
Okay, Councilor George, then I'll comment, Councilor, on the either smoking.
No, I'm not.
No, it's good.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, I may have missed part of this, but just to be clear from what I just looked this up as we were speaking, is that everything cannabis related, at least in the province of Alberta, is related to Bill 26 Act to control and regulate cannabis. And what you're talking about as far as the review that's happening is related to the Tobacco Act. So they're two separate things to begin with.
Well, right on the front of our report, it says cannabis.
Yeah, exactly. And this one, it says tobacco. Like the article that you're bringing up. So they're two separate acts.
I don't know the difference, then I guess, you know.
Well, one is made from marijuana and the other one's made from tobacco. So other than that, like I'm just trying to say that I think that they're two separate items.
I think we're splitting it.
As far as the cannabis-infused products and the land use bylaw, you know, we run into this, I think, when we were dealing with legalization of cannabis in the first place, is that we need to have rules and regulations in place for where these things can be, so that we have a bylaw that actually states where it can happen. Otherwise, because it's a legal product within the country, it'll end up going somewhere where you don't want it to and sold somewhere where you don't want it to be. And then we run into a different problem altogether, where it ends up a different problem altogether, because it's a legal product within the country, whether we like it or not, and this is the way that we can influence and control where it can be sold. So it's good that we get on there and do something before the products are actually in stores and being sold somewhere, so that we have a little more control. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Councilor. I think the smoking bylaw, I think Councilor Baker will help address the vaping and the issues around some of the vaping issues on both sides, because that is, that refers to cannabis, I believe, as well, the smoking bylaw.
Yeah, the smoking bylaw, when it speaks of smoking, refers to smoke or vape in a public place, commercial building, or commercial vehicle, so we're fairly restricted in those regards right now. What you're talking about is the health issues of vaping, and that's what the province is looking at.
Could I ask you this question over here? Certainly. Said I was not. It said, it is anticipated that the sale of these products will occur in local stores starting in December. Is that in Safeway or Superstore? Or is it in the cannabis store?
That's what we're proposing, that's what this bylaw, I believe, will address. Natasha,
What are we asking?
Natasha, if you would mind.
So our intention with the change in our land use bylaw is to pretty much regulate the cannabis sale of edibles and the cannabis sale of the dry herb the exact same. They have to go through the exact same process and they would be in the exact same locations. All our municipal approvals are also subject to the provincial approvals. The reason why they're saying December is because I guess they're a little bit behind in their processing of the applications to obtain these products, so there's a little bit of a lag time here.
So we're going to put it in the same.
That's basically what's being proposed.
Kind of thought so.
Yeah, the same permitted and discretionary uses wherever they've been districted, the retail sales of the edibles will follow simultaneously.
From this proposed bylaw.
Yeah.
They sell water in liquor stores too, right?
They do, but they also have to have, because of the cannabis issue, the cannabis would be regulated by.
I know what's going on here.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Natasha. Moving on to 5.3. City Manager.
Thank you, Worship, to present 5.3, draft investments policy. I'll turn it over to the CFO, please.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
Mayor. Before you use the draft investment policy, I've just highlighted 3 areas to bring to your attention. Investments is a typical investment policy that you would see in other municipalities. We've ensured that the investments are 100% guaranteed or backed by the institution submitting the investment tool, so that there's no third-party backing of the investments. Maximum term for investments would be 5 years. In addition, we propose to do it as a competition, and we would call for investment rates to financial institutions that are located within the city. Effectively, it creates a competition, and if a financial institution does not provide a bid on their own and forward us to an agency on their behalf, we will work with that or a central investment or central financial institution working on their behalf. The final area that we wanted to address was we indicated that there would be no more than 60% of the previous year's reserve balance invested in one particular financial institution at a time. Other than that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Chief Financial Officer. Councilor Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I took some time and went through some other kind of investment policies of other communities, and the first thing that jumped off to me was I think based on the charter, we have very different rules than what you would see anywhere else. Because it appeared as though most other municipalities, they focus mainly on government bonds and government investments, whether that be federal or provincial. Is that correct?
No, there's a whole list of the investment tools that we can invest in.
Okay.
We're trying to make sure that there are investments. The goal of the investment policy, and at least in my personal opinion, is to make sure that we get a reasonable return without risking our investment, our principal investment.
Right, and I think that that's like one of the things I liked about this was, you know, stating where we would invest in terms of the rating of the different products. So that's something near the end of this, I believe, is just saying what ratings are acceptable to us in terms of what we would invest in. Those are going to have, you know, a lower rate of return than something that's riskier, but in terms of the level of risk that's acceptable with taxpayer money, I think is a prudent thing to do. The other thing I was just going to say is, so as far as diversity goes, so we're saying no more than 60% in any given, or we're saying no more than 60% of the reserve balance can be in any one institution. I guess from what I was reading when they were talking about diversity in other policies that I read was, because mostly what I read was in other, levels of government, whether it was investing in Alberta government bonds or in federal government, it was saying that they would only put a maximum percentage in any one of those given types of products. But we're not necessarily saying now, we're just saying we're going to spread our investments around different institutions.
Right.
So I'm wondering if that's giving us, the level of diversity, I guess, that we really need. Because 60% is still fairly large to go to any one given institution in terms, but it's just, if you're not getting the investment return you wanted from that one, that can have a pretty large effect, I guess, if 60% of your eggs are in that one basket. So normally, what I saw was that the percentage is quite a bit lower.
City CFO, did you want to comment on that?
No, that's okay.
Well, and the other part, if I can just add to that, is that, is there a cumulative risk at play as well? So 60% of our total investment need to be limited in one institution versus the other. Because I see the thing where we'll do it annually, and I get that, but what happens next year? So then the other institution, we have 3 institutions, A, B, and C. Do we limit any one of those institutions to a maximum of 60% of our total investment? See what I'm getting?
Yeah, so it would be determined every time we went to tender. So we wouldn't do it on an annual basis. We would do it as our investments mature or we have money available to invest, and we would look at the prior year's audited financial statements for a number in order to see if that financial institution hit their ceiling. Once they hit their ceiling, it would go to the next highest bidder.
Okay, should we write that in there then? I guess that's the question.
Well,
Under risks that we apply.
so I think that we didn't want to get too much detail
Okay.
in the policy. We will come
Great.
forward with a procedure that we would use to do the actual bidding. But if there's something that needs clarification in here,
Yeah, I'm just seeing that, on an annual basis versus on a cumulative basis, right? So in one year, you could put 60% of $1 million in one place and the other place. And if we keep doing that every year, eventually one place is going to get that bigger share of our investments. Or are we saying, you're not sure?
no.
Do you follow that? So if we have $1 million in year one that we're going to invest, we're taking $600,000, giving it to institution A. Next year, we can have another $1 million, we're going to put another $600,000 in institution A. So
Yes.
now institution A now has $1.2 million, while the others have 80,000, or whatever that amount is.
It would be a cumulative. So if January 1st, we have a new audited financial statement and the dollar amount goes up, then we would reevaluate that next investment to ensure that they do not, that either they have some more room on their ceiling to be eligible to bid, or they're not eligible to bid because they've hit their ceiling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that.
So it's cumulative.
All 3.5.1 says you're doing it on an annual basis versus on a cumulative basis, that's all.
Okay, so I'll look at the wording for that.
Yeah.
Councilor Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the other 2 things that I noted that was fairly common in the other ones that I looked at, one was around management fees and kind of setting upset limits for management fees, but I wonder if that's something that if you're going through a procurement process, that would be included in the scoring, so maybe I'm less concerned about that, because you're talking about tendering this out, so then all the fees included in there would likely be dealt with in that process, correct?
So some municipalities will do a portfolio where they'll take a pot of money and hand it to do a bid on a portfolio, and then there'll be management fees in that.
Right.
We're not handling it like that. We're generally doing GICs or bonds or
Okay.
whatever tool they can give us.
Okay, and then the last would just be, the other, and maybe this is more relevant to those scenarios as well, just regular reporting on benchmarks as far as what you believed you were supposed to get or being promised versus what your investments are actually generating on a somewhat regular interval.
So my goal was to, when we did the quarterly financial statements, we'll give you an update on how much we have investment, what the average investment rate is, that kind of thing. Will that suffice, or?
Yeah,
are you-
that would likely suffice. I guess the other side of that would be the anticipated results in those. But if you're going with, say, government ones, then they likely are, you're going to get the stated rate, so, yeah. Never mind. That won't be much of an issue.
Yeah, they'll fluctuate in accordance with the investments, right?
Okay.
In the time of year.
You should be. I think that the approach that we're taking is a little bit different than the other ones that I saw, but there's nothing wrong with it by any means. You're good. It's good. I like to see it at the end of the meeting. I'm happy that it's coming forward, and that there's some structure around what we're doing so that, you know, long-term as we're managing these newer capital reserves and different items like that, that the public understands that there is a systematic process in which those funds are being invested in a way that will get maximum return on those reserves so that we can do more with it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Oh, Councilor.
Well, I guess the charter is the starting point. The risk factor today, I guess the toughest job is deciding where's the risk. Because you can be in the stock market for 6 months and do quite well. And the next thing you know, you're not doing so well. So what's the right risk? And I find it's quite a load to put on a member of administration to have to make that decision on their own. I just wondered, because trying to find out what's a safe investment that's not going to put us at risk. Well, how about a term deposit? That's going to be a 1%. I don't know what's out there these days, but unless there's risk, in some cases fair risk, but maybe you got a source that the average guy on the street doesn't have. That's a tough one for, I would think, for.
I can take you.
I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying, that's a pretty big load to put on somebody.
Go ahead, Steve.
So, under the definitions for securities, the charter is mirroring the MGA, and it allows us to invest in much more than what I've proposed here. So I've just included what's listed there: bonds, debentures, trust certificates, guaranteed investment certificates, receipts, certificates of deposits, deposit receipts, bills and notes. So those are all fairly low risk, and for the most part we're asking them to be, we're asking them to be 100% guaranteed by that financial institution, and that they can't be third-party backed. So you can buy a GIC that's backed by, say, General Motors or General Electric. We're not accepting those because they're not guaranteed by the bank that's giving you the
The
bid.
MGA would supersede the charter.
The MGA is much more wide, broad in what we can. We've narrowed this down to a smaller group to reduce
Do
our
you have to
risk.
follow the charter?
No, we can have it less.
I think basically, Councilor, the best description I have is these are as close to zero risk investments that we're going to look to. It could be argued that we could certainly find better returns going into the stock market, but we also know you have a better chance of losing those returns. Whereas the chief financial officer to this point has found very good returns based on one-year GICs and term deposits, the various instruments that she's used to this date. And I think this policy just reinforces where we want to go, because as a reserve, that money we want to ensure that the community and the taxpayers' investment doesn't go anywhere, where it gives her some direction, or that next CFO to, whoever's in that CFO position, to set the direction and have a policy so that they're not unsure of, and we don't lead to investments that are outside the limits. Because the direction is where the CFO statements today, I think, has been a very good line, and we've seen returns on investment significantly higher than we have in the past, without having the security of that money, because it is a reserve. As simple as that. So argumentatively, someone would say on the very far conservative side, no investment, then you always have a guarantee, but at the same time, I think we have to return good value, as good a value as we can obtain for the taxpayer with the least limited, with as low risk as possible. And in essence, I believe there's no risk when we're dealing with the charter banks and are fully guaranteed. That's what's being proposed today. Is that, CFO, is that kind of where I think we're at?
It's a high-risk world right now.
It certainly is, and that's why we want to stay out of it. Any other comments? Thank you very much for that, CFO.
You're welcome.
With that, I will look to inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. Today we have requests from the media for yourself and your elders.
Thank you. With that, I will look for... Motion to recess? Motion to recess, seconded. Councilor Buckingham, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Same, exactly the same.
There's a typo on 3.1. So the city recognizes.
Thank you. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. No, because I think the concern was you could put 60% every year in the same institution. So is there a threshold we want in any one institution? Because that's what's implied by an annual. Because you say annually.
In this 3.1, I say annual?
No, well, yeah, what's the category?
This one.
The risk one, the risk category, it's under risk.
First 60% of
Prior years, we're talking about 1 year, right?
They have to get the number.
Well, I don't think there's a problem with that statement, but there needs to be a second statement that would say no one institution will have more than 60% of the total investment.
Okay, total
Right?
investment.
Because if the principal is not putting all your eggs in one basket, then we can keep putting 60% into institution X every year, of whatever amount it is, which is the biggest chunk, right? And what we want to do is protect